Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. 1001 opens in movie theaters today after winning the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance earlier this year. I spoke to writer-director A.V. Rockwell about crafting her feature directorial debut to become an indie sensation. A.V. Rockwell, hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in Washington, D.C.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure to sit here with you today. So, hello.
Hey, all right. Well, congrats on the movie. It's called 1001. It just won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance, and it's going to open in theaters on March 31st. I guess break down the basic premise for our listeners really quick. I mean, I've seen it, you know what it's about. The old log line thing.
Yeah. So this is a mother and son story. We meet Inez, who's just gotten out of jail when we first meet her, and she immediately tries to reconnect with her son Terry, who's in the foster care system. And so when we first find them, we see that she is feeling at risk of losing him again. And so she just decides to impulsively take matters into her own hands and abduct him. And so you see them rebuild their life together, somewhat hiding in plain sight in a New York City that is rapidly beginning to change around them. It's very much so a mother and son relationship story, but it also is a story about a family versus a city.
Oh, absolutely. You said family versus the city, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you about was I love how I'm sure it's a conscious decision, obviously, but I love how you weave in the audio of the different mayors. You know, we have Giuliani and Bloomberg, and you watch the city become gentrified and it starts to intrude on their lives and everything. How much was the city and that skyline pre 9/11, seeing the towers and everything? How much was the city, a character of itself in this thing?
Oh, completely. I think the city to me is like the third the third main character in the film.
Right.
So I was very conscious of that and making sure that you really felt the personality of New York shine through from the very beginning, and felt the journey of it change. I think New York continues to change and over the course of the movie the same way these characters do. And to me, as I was writing it, I really love the idea of Inez being New York personified. Like, what if the spirit of New York City is a Black woman, And I think so much of the way inner city women like Inez specifically are seen reminds me of how New York was seen when we first meet it in '94, and the way that she is pushed to change and become a little bit more palatable for people is the same thing that the city goes through. So I really love the idea of these two characters, so to speak, taking this journey together. And that's what you see over the course of the film. They both transform and they're both tested as the movie moves along.
I like that analogy of Inez as the city itself. That's awesome. and also I guess based on the title 1001, I guess referring to the apartment number, right? But the apartment itself, their living quarters becomes an important character too. I always geek out on directorial stuff, but I love that like high angle where Terry's a kid playing on the floor, but you can kind of see sort of the wall, and it's almost like the apartment itself becomes a character. Was it were you trying to, in your shot selection, really play up that theme? Seeing the apartment as a character?
Yeah, I think I didn't see the apartment as a literal character like that. That wasn't the way I looked at it, but I did think it was important to see how their home transformed, like how it was when they first entered this space and the home that they made it, together. They made a home together, and you really see the arc of that. And so much of this is about like people who were looking for a sense of home, looking for a sense of stability, and looking for a sense of family, and the obstacles that got in the way of that, and what's at stake when things like gentrification come along to really devastate people who have been fighting across generations for what they have. And so I think the home needed to represent the ideas of that as well. So yeah, there is an arc to the apartment for sure, and you feel that. And I remember speaking with the art team, which was led by my production designer Sharon Lamosky, about like I was very particular about like how this home needed to look, because I wanted it to really feel like a woman who looks like Inez and lived in this community. It needed to feel very specific, like this is how she kept her home. We weren't going to just pick any random generic furniture, right. Like I really wanted it to feel like even like the plastic on the the on the lamp, or like just like certain bedroom sets that were just really popular. Like all those details, getting that right was very important to me, so that it really felt personal and really felt specific. But you really felt the reflections of how hard this woman worked,
Right.
to create the environment that she does for herself and her family.
Absolutely. And the theme of the apartment 1001, the home that she's created, is the only home they know. And what inspired that? Did you read an article about sort of a kidnapping from a foster system, or did you know someone that went through it, or how'd you come up with that?
I think in terms of the way an abduction element played into this family story, I do remember thinking a lot about like people who had lost their children, and so I thought about that. And I thought about just like how that feels for a mom, and so I was thinking about that feeling. And but I think also it's tough because it's like I don't want to give too much of the movie away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I just wanted to talk about two people that really had something to fight for, right? And both Inez and her son are products of the foster care system. And I know people that come from the foster care system. And so I was really just trying to honor them with this story. But I think also the vulnerability that creates. We're talking about homes, like whether a home is an apartment or a neighborhood or a city. And
Mhm.
so I think for people that are fighting for a sense of home, and fighting for our families, and I think especially in the Black community, we're fighting to keep families together when so many obstacles are thrown at us, as evidenced in the film. And so I think seeing two people that are longing for a sense of family, longing for a sense of home, seeing them go on the journey of that, and gain that. And gain that, and to just have to fight to keep holding on to it. I just felt like not only did I want to honor people that go through the foster care system and make sure that they feel seen, but I also kind of felt like in telling a story about like these are the woes of gentrification, and these are the woes of how a city can betray its people when it prioritizes commerce over community. I just felt like embedding that into the journey of my characters was going to be really important.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I go into the casting for a little bit, because these performances are so powerful, and the heft of these roles that they have to play. There's some really, goosebump, tear jerking scenes in this thing. But tell me about casting, the lead, Inez, Tayana Taylor. A lot of people know her from the music career, but I guess she'd been in some things like Coming to America, the sequel and stuff. But who knew she could act this good?
Oh,
Talk about why did you choose why did you choose Tiana, and how cool was it to see how she could grow through the different time periods throughout. That's a whole arc of a character she gets to play, man.
yeah, it was so much fun for her. I mean, I think that for me, I knew that it was going to be a bit challenging to find the right woman to play Inez, because I needed an actress who could not only handle the demands of this type of performance. It was a very challenging character to portray, very fun but very challenging. But I also needed to feel a certain level of truthfulness come through in their performance. I needed to feel that there was honesty there, and how they represented a New York City woman in general, but also how they represented an underprivileged woman of New York City, inner city women. And so I think that finding someone who could access that in a way that felt honest and empathetic, I knew it was going to be hard to find, because I didn't want it to, I think to cast the wrong type of person, it would have been almost like me again, making it feel like you're not even good enough to play your own role, and
Right,
not
right.
even say that Tiana did have to be this person in real life, but I felt in her performance, regardless of what her true background was, that she either she knows this woman, or she just connects to this woman in a way that feels like you understand her and you're there with her. Like I felt the connection and compassion for this type of person in the real world, and that was really important to see. And so I think by the time I saw Tiana's tape, I'd seen so many women that she really stuck out like a gem, and that was so exciting, and it was so pure and so raw and so honest. And even just reading a few pages from the screenplay, you could tell that she really understood the psychology of this woman. So it was exciting. And then Inez is a character that, beyond her experience in the world, Inez, you know, she's a very colorful character in general. She's just a very colorful movie character.
Yeah.
And I felt like Tiana had access to all those layers to the character as well. And that was really important, including being a mom. You know, she is tough
Yeah.
as nails, but she also had the ability to be vulnerable, and to be deeply loving, you know. So that was really exciting. And then the fact that she's from New York and from Harlem, it's just bonuses.
Oh yeah, it's a great performance. I wouldn't be surprised if you hear, you know, mentions come award time. I know we're way ahead, way too down the road for that, but you know what I mean. Those performances and the scenes with Lucky and then of course with her son. I mean, there's some really meaty moments in there. Well, casting that we have to talk about the casting. You know, the boy. He has to Terry. He's played three different actors. What ages 6, 13, and 17.
Yeah.
I guess we've seen, I don't know. I guess Moonlight kind of did that with Chiron in the 3 chapters, but in this, it's just told through without, you know, dips to black. It's just, you know, suddenly he's a little older, suddenly he's a little older. Um, how important was it when you were casting them? Like, how did you pick sort of the continuity so that we believe that they had, obviously they had to look alike, but also kind of act with similar mannerisms? You know, like how tricky was that?
I mean, I think it is something that's a little bit of a puzzle, you know, in terms of trying to find the right actors. I think finding little Terry was going to be the most challenging. And so it was great once we had him that he could kind of anchor where I go from there.
Mhm.
And so I think finding him, I mean, I think finding him in terms of finding the actors was really important. And then that kind of set the stage for the other actors who I was really excited to find. Like, but out of the group of actors that I was finding, like who felt right to channel the journey of a character if we're starting with Aaron. And I think in terms of just Terry's journey, I just wanted to be mindful of I wanted to be mindful of like, how is this little boy who starts off so withdrawn and so smart, you know, you can tell that there's so much bubbling within him, but
Yeah.
he's processing so much based on what his experience was early in life. But little by little, as his life gets more stable, and as the apartment, you know, becomes a home for them, you see him getting the space to just be a boy, just be a child, and just open up and get to know himself and get to know who he wants to be. So much of Terry's journey is about who I am, and I think each of the boys, they do a good job of showing him slowly but surely getting more self-actualized,
Right.
you know, into the man that he is by the time we're saying bye to him at the end of the film.
It is quite the role, and all 3 of them. I believed that they were all the same person throughout. So, uh, good on you for that. Well, in closing, I know we're up against the clock, but let's find out a little bit more about you. You know, where did you grow up? You know, what sort of movies did you love growing up? You know, I want to know those like initial influences on you.
Yeah. I grew up in Queens, you know, so I'm a New York City girl, which is, you know, a huge part of why I wanted to tell this story. Um, the movies that I loved growing up, I think I go back to the movies that I felt like they've stayed with me. You know, these are my favorites then, and they're still amongst my favorites now. So I
Right.
loved Goodfellas, I loved Crooklyn, I loved Do the Right Thing. I loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Of course.
I'm also a big animation fan, and so I love the Disney like classic, you know, animation, like the traditional, you know, the
Sure.
icon as well. So like those are my favorites growing up as a kid. And then obviously as I began my journey into filmmaking, that just kind of expanded. And then I gained new favorites like Battle of Algiers and like Z and like Seven
Wow.
Beauties. And, you know, I think there's just so many movies that as I continue to grow as an artist, got to gain exposure to, and it just gave me the full breadth of what the art form could be. But those early ones, especially like the ones by Spike and Scorsese, I think before I even knew what filmmaking was as a career path, they gave me a sense of how you could really balance, like, you know, great art with entertainment, and have something to say and say it in a way that is specific and true to who you are. So great influences. I'm sorry, it's like a fly around.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, Spike and Marty, as they say, 2 New York geniuses. So yeah, you were learning from the best. And thanks for throwing in Roger Rabbit. I could also geek out about Battle of Algiers and Z and all of those. I mean, they're masterpieces too, but we don't have time. So thank you so much for joining us. I guess final seconds. How exciting was it as we bow out here to have such success at Sundance and and going forward? I mean, you're on the ride of your life for your first directorial debut feature here. So I mean, what's this whirlwind like?
Oh, it's been incredible. It's been incredible. It's definitely been a whirlwind for sure. But I'm just staying in present. I'm staying, grateful for all of it and just enjoying the moment. So
Awesome. Well, congrats again. It's called 1001 and it opens March 31st. Thank you so much, Avi Rockwell.
bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.